Hey nerds, I'm gonna do a quick review of the latest episode of Walking Dead, episode 13, titled The Other Side. My favorite episode in a long time. I know that Rosie has not been a fan favorite this season, or really at all. However, I am thankful that they're continuing her plotline the way they have. And I feel like they've been slightly nudging us in this direction since, I don't know, maybe season 4, because I couldn't help but think about the thing that she said to Eugene during No Way Out, and saying that, he was weak, he wasn't going to get out, and that he was going to sit tight where everyone saved him. And a little bit before No Way Out, like right before the tower broke the wall, and Eugene was kind of messing up on weapons training, and Rosita told him, wouldn't you want to avoid the feeling of one of your friends not living, and you could have done something to stop them from dying? Compounding that thought process with the fact that she literally could not stop Abraham from dying. And a similar dilemma Rick had expressed during his episode with Michonne a few episodes ago, was the helplessness that Negan's saviors made them feel, and how they couldn't save the ones they loved. Now, because Rosita has nothing left but revenge, apparently, it's been very easy to call her out as, just the stupidest character on the show and kind of dragging everyone down. I mean, if anything, she's like the Chris of, if you watch Fear the Walking Dead, of the main show, because her head's up her own ass and she's doing what she wants regardless of who it hurts. Keeping all that in mind, the only person to keep our self-destructiveness in check seems to be Sasha, which I think really plays into the cycle of life the show kind of facilitates, because obviously people have to leave the show, and the legacy of certain characters kind of persists through characters who keep their ideals in mind, which is why Glenn will probably not stop being mentioned, at least until Maggie dies. And after that, he'll probably be mentioned infrequently like Shane is. Seems like this was going to be the swan song for Rosita and Sasha. But it seems Sasha is trying to protect Rosita. It even seems that from the beginning of their little adventure, that Sasha had every intention to try to save Rosita's life if she could. Which really touched my heart, because of course Rosita had been throwing her nothing but shade up until this episode, and only stopped throwing her shade like right before the final scene. Rosita's been pretty tortured, and she's been wanting to die, much like Abraham wanted to die before he met Eugene, and much like Sasha wanted to die pretty much the whole way to Alexandria, starting with Bob's death and later with her brothers. It sucks being in the position that they're in, and yet Sasha somehow has the head about her to want to keep her alive, because, well, she's valuable to the group because of her set of skills, which we finally have a background for this episode. It almost felt like the whole Daryl thing from season 4 with, what did you used to do before the apocalypse? And of course, all the skills that Rosita gained were during the apocalypse, it seemed. It is relevant to mention here because her jack of all trades mentality seems to apply to a lot of survivalist things. So it made sense that she learned these skills during the apocalypse. Now, I think that objectively a lot of people are going to be like, man, we're trading Sasha in for Rosita then? Yes. Yes, they are. It's kind of like when the torch was passed off from Glenn to Maggie / Enid. I'm very interested in seeing where the case goes for Rosita, especially considering, thinking about it, the fact that they even gave her a scar and, make up her scar every episode seems like, man, she only got that scar this season. Maybe they want to elongate that and make that kind of her trademark right now. I wanted to also point out that the scar that she totally gave herself looks a lot like a teardrop tattoo that you get to tell people that you've killed a person. It's funny because, Rosita's killed plenty of, people, but there's only one that she really wants to kill. Of course, it being a teardrop is also kind of alluding to the pain that she's felt, and is great at the end of the episode when she's crying, and she's crying over her scar, and they stylize it. It was so poignant to me that it made me think of the Rick Grimes snot bubble in the the season premiere. And I really like what they're doing with Rosita's character, even though moving forward she might still get a lot of people killed. But honestly, the MVP for this episode was Sasha. If this is her last episode, which I don't think, I think she'll get one more scene, and then we will see her with the death Holly got in the comics. If you don't know what I mean by that, then either wait or something, because I'm not going to spoil it any more than that. Also, anyone who's going to be talking in the comments, please use spoiler tags if you're going to mention that sort of thing. However, since they repurposed so many deaths that kind of commingle in this part of the story, Abraham, Denise's, and now potentially Holly's, it seems like it seems like they're gonna be moving on to deaths that aren't as predictable, perhaps, because the death that Denise got was Abraham's death in the comics, and so they remixed a lot of other deaths too. But it seems like they want these poignant deaths to stay. Like Spencer still got his exactly. I'll just pretend that was Daryl. Spencer got his death exactly how we get to in the comics, for example. They really wanted to keep that. And of course, they're still trying to keep with comic book stuff, but they've diverged so much and even added a group that doesn't exist in the comics, that where they move from here isn't anybody's guess, but they do have a lot more wiggle room than they could have. I really like this episode for exemplifying what the series means. By that I mean, if you look in interviews with Robert Kirkman, he says that The Walking Dead is basically about the thought process of, I live in a world where this is reality. How do I cope? I live in a world where everyone's infected, so when they die, they will try to kill you. Of course, the question for this season is more, how can I live in a world where I have to be under another person's thumb when, to survive up until now, I've pretty much destroyed any person who's in my way. It's been a tough pill to swallow for the series regulars, and I think that having such a strong human opposition that's lasting for so long is really uncomfortable for a lot of viewers right now, obviously, in and of itself. because the way we are kind of drawing out the whole Negan plotline means that he'll likely be alive till the end of season 8. And depending on what they do, especially because Jeffrey Dean Morgan is such a powerful force, they might keep him for longer. Daryl and the governor were not supposed to live as long as they have and did. So it's safe to say the actor's performance does have some weight on if they'll stay on the series or not. The other thing I want to touch on is the episode that this really calls me back to is Always Accountable, in which Sasha and Abraham have a lot of alone time, and Abraham is kind of soul searching, trying to figure out what he wants to do now that he lives in Alexandria, even though he has a creeping suspicion because of basically being a soldier and having that mentality and that being his role within the group. He knows he's gonna die before a lot of other people, but until then, and if he gets lucky, why not live a good life? At the same time, he doesn't have all his shit together. Sasha is encouraging him to get his shit together, and they are mutually wanting each other to not be suicide crazy, I guess, because Sasha was coming apart at the seams before hitting Alexandria, and Abraham had gone up and down a little bit since finding out about Eugene's lie. Always Accountable is one of my favorite episodes. And I'll use, actually, before I finish up, I will say that the reason I believe, other than the whole, Rosita is going to be like our savior kind of thing, was that even though in a weird way they were in competition because, Abraham left Rosita for Sasha, in a way, Sasha is doing Abraham the ultimate solid in keeping Rosita alive. I mean, not necessarily because, he was still in love with her, but because he would want her to live, and I think that sentiment would have stayed true. It's just that he was rough around the edges, and that's why they didn't get to have a proper goodbye. And unfortunately, the only goodbye he really got to give was to Sasha. But in Sasha's pain, she still is a little sage about it. She even quotes Bob in the episode Always Accountable, someone whose death really spiraled her out of control. So the fact that she could even quote such a high-spirited guy showed that she was making progress. And she made a lot of progress before Negan came along and made life a little less livable. And because of just the value of people and wanting people to survive, that sentiment that Rosita echoes way back when they're about to defend Alexandria from walkers, and keeping your friends alive, keeping the people close to you alive, and doing all you can. In this world, all you can does mean putting your life on the line. Kind of like what Herschel said way back in season 3. Sorry, I'm super callbacking, but this episode has given me the most nostalgia. Herschel says you have to risk your life to live in this world, but you get to choose what you risk your life for, basically. I love Sasha's smile at the end. It was really heartbreaking. And I guess I'll move to the last scene because it is a little cliffhangery, because Sasha has a person in front of her who may or may not be Daryl. Looking at the timeline, Daryl might have been able to get there the cuts are kind of misleading because we see Daryl know that Sasha and Rosita are gone before kind of the last two scenes of the of the episode. However, it is unlikely that it is him, I want to say, because with Daryl and Dwight having this kind of competition of personhood, the fact that they've been stealing each other's clothes, and it's been very hard to distinguish them from one another. I think the show obviously is doing this on purpose, and I think it's interesting that if it is Dwight, as long as Rosita doesn't go crazy and shoot him on sight, that it might end up better for her, because if it's Daryl, he might be poised to go right back into the Savior compound and get them all killed, as we've seen him almost do when he's hiding with Maggie. Also, a very touching scene. And did anyone else think of the old intro credits of the doorknob jangling back in season 1 with Morgan holding up in the house and his wife trying to get in as a zombie? Sorry, Walker. It was really a cool, intense moment there. I felt like them crouching in the dark, really kind of scared, because walkers are attracted by noise. And of course, humans also who wants to kill you is also going to be attracted by noise. But zombie just going to stay there, is going to technically stay there indefinitely, and you can dispatch pretty easily. A human being, though, they go missing, then their group is wondering where they are, and then your actions have way bigger consequences. So the fact that a lone human grunt has pretty much the same dramatic weight, at least in this moment, as a walker did way back when, I think is kind of a cue to how the show is going to be moving forward, and how Walker is going to be even less relevant in terms of scuffles with humans. Wow, this is going to be one of my longest reviews ever. But since I got to this magical place, I will finish off, because the silhouette of likely Dwight, I think, is interesting because, well, the obvious reason of, okay, Dwight's probably going to join Team Rick really soon. And, well, they showed us throughout the episode shots of Daryl almost to let us study him, so that when those last few frames hit us and we're like, is that Dwight or Daryl? Which is kind of been a question throughout the season, like, Dwight or Daryl, Dwight or Daryl, Dwight or Daryl. It's because of the silhouette shots we've got of Daryl, it makes more sense for it to be Daryl from I guess like a stylistic standpoint, because we get in the intro sequence, the beautiful intro sequence, him shadowed in silhouette looking down, just with a knife, not his crossbow that gives him direction and strength, and being really sad. But the silhouette is very similar, even though it's a closer shot to the shot towards the end of the episode. However, the last time we see Daryl for sure in the episode is when he's asking about Sasha and Rosita. When he does this, he's holding his crossbow in the exact same way over the exact same shoulder that whoever is out there with Rosita is. That's not a mistake. Now, obviously, because of the way things are going and this whole mirroring, in a way, it's like, it doesn't matter if it's Dwight or Daryl, they're both whoever it is gonna help Rosita in some way, which I think is a cool motif. I'm really excited. I'm not sure if the episodes are gonna top this one for me this season. I was kind of on Reddit, and I saw that a lot of people were very disappointed, as they have been this entire season. But I think Rosita is about to get redeemed in a major way, and I think she's going to be a major character moving forward if they don't just kill her in the season finale. which would suck because you put this much emphasis on a character and grooming them for greatness, Beth, then, you know, it really sucks when you just kind of put a bullet in their head. See you, nerds.